Today is about the story. What if an ogre eats the forbidden fruit? I wanted to create my own kitbashed proxy that fits with my old ass Blight Kings, so after releasing the tyrant from his imprisonment, I started with the Blight King starvation insurance. I cut away the cuddle pillows above, which only left me with this, well, hole to be honest. Do you think James was aware of putting a bell into a stomach? You know, a belly? I'm getting old. Anyway, I tri-fitted it and had to cut away a lot more material. Luckily the ogres are very healthy dudes who have a lot of spare plastic around their hips. And once I've butchered this, I tri-fitted it and started filling the gaps with green stuff to bring these two parts together. I just rolled up a sausage of that soon-to-be rarity, pressed the belly bell into it and sculpted the rough edges with my silicone sculpting tool. First I pressed most of the green stuff into the small recesses to have a smoother surface, and then I cut away the excess green stuff and used a little bit of water to smoothen it out, especially under his chest and the transition from the belly to ogre itself. And I also wanted to welcome the newest Patreon, Helgi Eriksson, I hope I pronounced that somehow correctly, and thanks a lot for the support. And because the belly only has a very small loincloth, I grabbed a little bit from I have no idea where it comes from miniature and attached it to the underside as well. I rolled up some blobs of green stuff as I wanted to do a little bit of Nurgle skincare here and there, but after looking at it I realized it just looks like a bolt-on thing, so I drilled some holes here and there to have it sink in a little. And as I feel particularly uncreative today, I don't know what I can write or talk about at this point, but just cutting it away is also a no-go, so how do you like your coffee? I like mine with a little bit of milk of any kind and half a spoon of sugar. And once again a little bit of shaping and sculpting, and after that I went on with his weapon. That I wanted to turn into a staff of authority. A bringer of good news, so to say. For that I had to cut away the blade and remove the little skull that also hangs on it. As this left a tiny mark because of my very delicate method of just breaking it off, I redefined it with my hobby knife again. And now onto the hammer. I wanted this to become a Nurgle sword. For that I've sawn off the hammer's head, brushed the dust away and cleaned it. Once that was done, I used an Ogor Theridon sword and also removed the hand from it. And after that I drilled some holes into the blade itself and destroyed it with my hobby knife, and when that was done I glued these two parts together and went on with his head. I removed the ball joint and one horn of this old world Chaos Warrior as well and glued it on top of his neck. And while I think this looks absolutely amazing, I thought I invite you amazing people to leave a like and maybe a subscription, maybe join the Discord server, where I'm sometimes very active and sometimes very ghosty. It always depends on what kind of a human being wakes up that day. And while I let this connection harden for a while, I thought I'd try something new here. A faceless mask. The initial idea was to give him a harbinger of decay like chainmail over his face, but spoiler alert, it didn't work out. Turns out the Nurgle arrogance in thinking I could do it without trying first turned out to look like a potato bag. Which I honestly very liked. It somehow fits an ogre, and as I said in the beginning, today is about the story. This ogre outcast ate a whole bag of, let's call them, funny potatoes, more on that later. I punched some holes into the flop of green stuff and lay it over his face, and while that looks a little bit ridiculous, I took out another flop of green stuff, punched an even bigger hole through it, and also lay it over his head to indicate a hood. And with that he slowly comes together and does look like a prophet of Nurgle. I sculpted the hood a little bit with a thanks to you toothpick and redefined the potato bag again. And when I looked at this creation, I thought it misses tentacles. Like every other soil-seeking horror, it needed tentacles, which I just glued under his hood. Maybe it's good that he wears a potato bag over his head. And when that was done, I drilled a hole into his foot and built an elevated base from cork and bark. And after that was dry, I put a toothpick into his foot, secured the miniature on the cork and primed the entire miniature black. I started with the skin. That got a very unhealthy undercoat of hexlichen and violet red. After that I painted the boots and everything else that is fabric or leather with a 50-50 mix of dark rust and burnt red. Because I don't accept the drying time of some paints, I smashed on a rough 7:1 mix of white and jade to indicate some rust effects. And after that I thought I'd paint him yellow, but that didn't really turn out to my liking, so I went back to green. Starting with dark green and getting brighter with scorpion green and yellow green. For the edges I mixed a little bit of wolf grey in there so it looks like a metal. And once that's done, I painted his hood and the potato bag with barbarian skin tone and darkened the hood itself down with burnt red once more. This creates a very warm and smooth brownish hue, which I also use to paint the leathers and woods with. Like with my 40k Skaven, this once again is a very wild paint job, as I built this one just a day after. For his skin I went on with Bugman's Glow and a tiny amount of Hexlichen mixed into it, so it stays in this sickish purpley hue. And when that was done, I went on with a 50-50 mix of Bugman's Glow and Elfic Flesh. I used the same Elfic Flesh to highlight the potato bag and all the leathers. I feel like I've said this sentence like 100 times by now, but without the potatoes in there. And to sicken up the flesh again, I used violet red and painted it onto the open places and the tentacles. And when that was done, I only painted some small lines with Elfic Flesh onto the horns and once again redefined the hood. After that I only dry brushed the base with some grays and called him done. Boil them, mash them, stick it in your mouth. I fear copyright claims, so here's a little bit of a story. Back in Ghyran, after it fell to Nurgle, there was an ogre outcast. Thrown out by his tribe, he roamed around the realm, not really understanding why it smells so funny. He found a bag of potatoes and ate them. They tasted strange, but at least it was something to eat. After a while he noticed some alive sprouts coming out of his mouth, and ashamed of his new appearance, he covered his face under the very potato bag while seeking out new friends. There you have it. I bet you didn't stood up today with the idea of listening to something like that. And with that said, I hope you have a great rest of the day and we are going to see each other in the next one!